What is he in for this Saturday night?
Yeah, I ruined Wiggling for sure. Um,
Lamont Roach Jr. made it clear that he wasn't just another opponent for Tank Davis. He spoke with conviction, carried himself with confidence, and told anyone willing to listen that he was ready to shock the world. He refused to be just another name on Tank's ever-growing list of knockouts. He wouldn't crumble under pressure or be pushed around. He was built
Lamont
differently.
Roach, but when you look at Shakur Stevenson, when you're looking at these other fighters that he should really be fighting, he don't want to do them fights. He don't.
Like so many before him, Roach's belief was just that, his own belief. From the moment the fight was announced, it seemed the entire boxing world already knew the outcome. He could say all the right things, push himself to the limit in training camp, and convince himself that he was built differently. But in the end, he was stepping into the ring with a force of destruction. And when the bell rang, reality set in.
Soften him up, then fry him.
Davis had already established himself as one of the most feared punchers in boxing. He wasn't just knocking opponents out, he was ending careers and shattering confidence. Every fighter Roach mentioned before the fight, Ryan Garcia, Isaac, Cruz, came in with their own plans, their own belief that they could weather the storm. They all had strategies, they all had confidence, and yet, one by one, they learned the hard way what it truly meant to step into the ring with Tank Davis.
That the boxing fans is kind of hypocritical when they beg for fighters that they're to be great, but if they see from your point of view instead of Gervonta being frustrated with Gervonta Tank.
Roach had confidently declared that he wouldn't be broken, mentally or physically. He spoke of his elite boxing skills and his ability to solve the puzzle that so many before him had failed to crack. But deep down, even his most optimistic supporters had to sense the inevitable. This was a super featherweight champion moving up to face one of the most destructive punchers in the sport. A 130-pound fighter stepping into a division where Tank had been dismantling full-sized lightweights. The only question left was how long Roach could hold on, and how much punishment he was willing to endure before the inevitable unfolded.
Imagine beat him again. Obviously, you want to fight the other champs at 135. Right? Let's say that scenario happens, and Shakur should be on.
Roach made it clear that he didn't care about the doubters. He brushed off the critics, ignored the skepticism, and let the world know he wasn't interested in hearing why he couldn't win. They'll just have to wait and see, he said, when asked how he planned to handle Tank's power. He was certain his moment was coming, that he was about to prove he was more than just a solid champion from the lower weights. But once again, that was only his belief. The real question the world was waiting to see answered was how Roach would respond when he got hit clean. Would he try to tough it out like Pitbull Cruz and make it to the final bell? Would he go down early like Ryan Garcia? Or would he fall in a way no one expected? Once those questions were answered, the conversation quickly shifted.
In fact, not necessarily carry over in the fight.
For me, because like this what I did.
Tank's victory was a foregone conclusion. The real conversation was about what came next. Shakur Stevenson wasted no time inserting himself into the spotlight. Already embroiled in an online feud with Tank, he wasn't going to let this moment pass without adding fuel to the fire. As soon as the dust settled, Stevenson took to X, calling Tank goofy and demanding that he stop talking and make the fight happen. But Tank wasn't about to let Shakur dictate the narrative. He saw right through it. "He's just trying to rush in because he heard I might retire," Tank told the media. "They're tired of him, man. His people are trying to cash him out before y'all see what he really
But
is."
everybody be talking shit to Gervonta, it don't be coming out good for them, my nigga.
He obviously a superstar. Just because who he is, this don't change no program that I got going on. I'm here to win. I've been coming to win. And I think the same result will happen on
This wasn't just talk. There were real whispers behind the scenes that Top Rank had grown frustrated with Stevenson. He wasn't the star they had hoped for. He wasn't selling. His last fight had been so dull that fans literally walked out before the final bell. Now, instead of building himself up, he was trying to force his way into a fight with Tank by making noise online. But Tank wasn't buying it. "You ain't got enough clout for me to care," he said. "If you really want to get to me, go fight Keyshawn Davis first. Handle that, then we'll talk."
Lamont, the way that everybody else look at Lamont, I know
I know Lamont is a really good fighter. I'm not. This ain't no Frank Martin. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. It's a real good.
Shakur and Keyshawn had already made it clear they had no interest in fighting each other, calling themselves brothers. But Tank wasn't buying it. In his eyes, if Shakur truly wanted to prove himself, he needed to stop making excuses and start taking real risks. "Go fight your brother and show me something," Tank said. "Then maybe I'll care." This wasn't the response Stevenson was expecting. He had anticipated another back and forth, a war of words to build hype. Instead, Tank had put him in check, shifting the pressure onto Shakur to prove he was worth Tank's time. Meanwhile, Lamont Roach Jr. was already looking ahead. He had taken a loss, but he wasn't finished. Even before the Tank fight, he had been eyeing a matchup with Jose Rayo Valenzuela, and now that he was back at 130 pounds, that plan was still in motion. Valenzuela, fresh off a career-defining win over Edwin de los Santos, was searching for another high-profile opponent. Despite his recent setback, Roach still had name value and held the WBA super featherweight title, making this a logical fight for both men. He had just faced the toughest test of his career, but he wasn't about to let it define him. Roach still believed in himself, still saw himself as a world-class fighter, and rather than dwelling on the past, he was ready to do what he did best: compete against fighters his own size. That was the difference between Roach and Tank. Roach could afford to lose and move on. Tank couldn't. Every fight, every decision, every move he made had to be calculated. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a businessman, and in the business of boxing, he held the power. Right now, Tank controlled everything. If he wanted to fight Shakur, he could. If he wanted Keyshawn, he could. If he preferred to skip them both and go straight for a mega fight with Devin Haney, that was an option. 2. The only certainty was that no matter what happened next, Tank was still the king. And for everyone chasing him, from Shakur to Keyshawn to the entire lightweight division, the road to the top still ran through him. Lamont Roach believed he had spotted something that so many before him had missed. Tank's greatest weakness: a lack of focus. He had studied Tank, listened to his words, and come to a bold conclusion. Davis was distracted. The talk of retirement, the constant social media antics, the moments where he seemed more interested in life outside the ring than inside it, all of it suggested to Roach that Tank's mind wasn't fully on boxing. And to him, that was the opening he needed to do what no one else had done before. But recognizing a weakness and exploiting it are two very different things. When it came time to fight, Roach simply couldn't take advantage. Before the fight, Roach spoke with confidence. He told G Missport that Tank's talk of retirement was a clear sign of a fighter with one foot out the door. "Honestly, I think that's the wrong thing to say to a guy like me because I'm going to try and exploit that," he said. Roach believed Tank was vulnerable, that this was the moment the boxing world would witness his downfall. But once the bell rang, reality hit. Tank's so-called lack of focus didn't make him any less dangerous. Even if Davis had spent more time talking about retirement than training, even if he had underestimated Roach, it still wasn't enough to shift the odds. The skill, the power, the experience, it was all too much.
I think he actually took this fight for the naysayers and all this and all the people talking shit about the fight. I think he actually took the fight because he know that I'm a dog. And, he want to prove his skills against a dog. So I'm going to show y'all what happens when two dogs get in the ring.
Roach had spent months studying Tank's past fights, analyzing his tendencies. He knew Davis liked to take his time in the early rounds, carefully reading his opponent. He had seen how Tank fought in bursts, easing off before suddenly unleashing explosive power shots. Roach believed that by staying disciplined and pressing the action, he could disrupt Tank's rhythm. He was so confident that he even declared, "I'm just as good as he is, and I can't wait for people to see that." But when fight night came, those openings he had envisioned never materialized.
Ninth round. What?
You say ninth round.
You said 9?
Yeah.
What's your response to that, Lamont?
Look, he got scared.
I'm telling her, you saying you going down in
It
a
wasn't for
9?
lack of effort. Roach came into the fight with energy, determined to disrupt Davis's timing. He used movement and activity to keep Tank from settling in, and for a brief moment, it seemed like he was onto something. He landed clean shots, exposing some of the same vulnerabilities he had pointed out before the fight. But the problem with fighting Tank Davis is that even when he appears vulnerable, even when he doesn't seem fully locked in, he's still more dangerous than most fighters at their absolute best. Roach had spoken about their history, about how they had known each other since they were kids. He thought that familiarity might give him an edge. But once the fight started, none of that mattered.
Beat his ass.
Can't
Y'all
do
talking.
shit, wait.
For real. I better be quiet.
I don't give a y'all
We got the whole hood over there, Tank. Like,
Roach had been around Tank since their amateur days. He wasn't going to be intimidated like so many others had been. He believed that the aura of fear Tank carried wouldn't affect him. But once the punches started landing, reality set in. Davis wasn't just fast, he was explosive. He wasn't just strong, he was a finisher. And most importantly, even if he had one foot out the door, as Roach had claimed, he still had more than enough to handle anything Roach threw at him. Roach had spent so much time focusing on Tank's distractions that he overlooked something crucial. Tank is the kind of fighter who can afford to be distracted and still dominate. He can talk about retirement, post on social media, and show up to press conferences looking disinterested. But when the lights are on, he delivers.